Hello everyone, today we're going to study lessons 5 and 6 of Unit 3 titled 9 to 5. So let's do this quick revision here. Rewrite the following sentences using the words in brackets. Number 1. You must finish these files before Monday. Use meet the deadline. So to meet the deadline is to finish something before the time you have set. So the sentence is going to be something like this. These files must meet deadlines before Monday. Number 2. His job is to work with machines in the factory. Use operate machinery. So to operate machinery is to control it, to start a machine. So his job is to operate machinery in the factory. Number 3. Developing countries should be aware of the new technology. Use keep. So to keep up with something is to know the latest information about this thing. So developing countries should keep up with the new technology. So now let's study this grammar lesson titled Non-Defining Relative Clauses. In the previous lessons we have talked about the relative pronouns. We said that we use the relative pronouns after a noun to make it clear which person or thing we're talking about. We also said that the part of the sentence that gives the information about the person or the thing is called the relative clause. We also talked about the defining relative clause, that clause that gives us important information about the thing or the person we are talking about. We also said that we can use that instead of who and which. So from today's title, we can note that it is non-defining relative clauses. And it is obvious that it is going to be completely the opposite of what we have discussed before with the defining relative clauses. So look at this here. Non-defining relative or a non-defining relative clause comes immediately after a noun and gives extra information about that noun. So it gives us extra information that is not important. So for example, Harrods is a famous department store. Anything else? Harrods, which is in Knightsbridge in London, is a famous department store. So this relative clause here, which is in Knightsbridge in London, this is a piece of information that is not important. So we put it between two commas. So we can drop it. So this is the non-defining relative clause. So it adds extra information to the sentence. The sentence makes sense without it. Another example, Macy's department store is one of the largest shops in the world. It's in New York. So Macy's department store, which is in New York, is one of the largest shops in the world. So this relative clause, which is in New York, this is the non-defining relative clause. And you can note the commas here. We want to say that this part of the sentence is not important and we can drop it. So it's separated from the main clause by commas. Taha Hussein, who is a great Egyptian writer, was blind. We all know that Taha Hussein was a great Egyptian writer, so this sentence or this part of the sentence is not important. Note here that in non-defining relative clauses we cannot use that instead of who and which as we did with the defining relative clauses. So defining or non-defining relative clauses are completely the opposite of defining relative clauses. So now let's read these examples on non-defining relative clauses. Number 1. Her son works in a factory. He lives in Spain. So, her son who lives in Spain works in a factory. We put the non-defining relative clause between two commas. My sister wants to be a musician. She plays the violin. Use who. So, my sister who plays the violin wants to be a musician. Number 3. I left my new phone on the bus. I bought it last week. So, my new phone which I bought last week, I left on the bus. Number 4. I'd like to visit Buckingham Palace. The Queen lives there. So, Buckingham Palace, where the Queen lives, I'd like to visit. We all know that the Queen lives in Buckingham Palace, so it's not important to say it. So we can drop this one here, and we put it between two commas. So now let's do this exercise on non-defining relative clauses to make sure that you got it all. Rewrite the following sentences using the words in brackets. Number 1. I bought a second-hand car. It broke down 2 weeks later. So, the second-hand car which I bought broke down 2 weeks later. Number 2. The woman is my neighbor. She works at the post office. So, the woman who works at the post office is my neighbor. Number 3. Our new fridge doesn't work. It was delivered last week. So, our new fridge, which was delivered last week, doesn't work. Number 4. We stayed at a hotel. It was extremely comfortable. So, the hotel where we stayed was extremely comfortable. Number 5. Mrs. Smith is the teacher. Her mom knows my grandmother. So, Mrs. Smith, whose mom knows my grandmother, is the teacher. So here the part of the sentences that we put between two commas, these are called the non-defining relative clauses. And they give us extra information, a piece of information that is not important, so we can drop it. So now let's do this quick revision to the correct answer. Number 1. That's the boy delivers the newspaper. So that's the boy who delivers. Number 2. Fukushima was the site of a nuclear accident in 2011. So Fukushima, which is in Japan, was the site of a nuclear accident in 2011. Number 3. Mo Salah was born in Egypt, is the best footballer in the world. So Mo Salah who? Number 4. We went to the shop. Rachel works on Saturdays. So we went to the shop where? Number 5. Can I borrow the camera you showed me last week? So can I borrow the camera which you showed me last week? Number 6. London, I was born, is a very cosmopolitan city. So London, where I was born. So now let's study these new words. Let's start with application. It's a written request for employment. So an official request for something, usually in writing. For example, have you filled in the application form for your passport yet? Number 2. Apply for. To request something, usually officially or especially by writing or sending in a form. For example, I have applied for a new job with the local newspaper. Catering. It's the business of providing food. For example, who is going to do the catering for the wedding? Responsibility. It's a duty, something you have to do. For example, It's her responsibility to ensure the project finishes on time. Reliable, suitable or fit to be relied on, depended on. For example, Tamer is very reliable. If he says he will do something, he will do it. Enthusiastic, to be excited or motivated. For example, he is really enthusiastic about tomorrow's party. Confident, very sure of something positive. For example, I am confident of his skills as a manager. Grateful, to be thankful, to show or express thanks to another person. For example, I am so grateful for all that you have done. Enclose, to send something in the same envelope. For example, please enclose a curriculum vitae with your letter of application. So now let's do this exercise on lesson 5. Choose the correct answer. Number 1. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1990, became the first black South African president. So Nelson Mandela who? Number 2. Fukushima was the site of a nuclear accident in 2011. So Fukushima, which is in Japan. Number 3. Mohamed Salah was born in Egypt, is one of the best footballers in the world. So Mohamed Salah who? Number 4. The Egyptian Museum is in Cairo, is very popular. So the Egyptian Museum which is in Cairo. Number 5. London, I was born, is a very cosmopolitan city. So London, where I was born. Number 6. Berlin used to be divided into two parts, is now the capital of Germany. So Berlin, which used to be. So I am describing Berlin. I am not saying that I did or people did something inside it. So I used which. Number 7. Ahmed Shawqi poems are still read, died many years ago. So Ahmed Shawqi whose poems. Number 8. Edison was American, invented the light bulb. So Edison who was American. Number 9. Abu Trika stopped playing football, is still one of the most famous Egyptians. So Abu Trika who? Number 10. My car I bought last year is a cool yellow Mini. So my car which I bought last year. Rewrite the following sentences using the words in brackets. Number 1. Crete has a lot of ancient history. It is the largest of the Greek islands. Use which. So Crete, which is the largest of the Greek islands, has a lot of ancient history. Number 2. Mozart is one of the most popular classical composers. He died in poverty. So Mozart, who died in poverty, is one of the most popular classical composers. Number 3. Our new fridge doesn't work. It was delivered last week. Use which. So our new fridge, which was delivered last week, doesn't work. Martin speaks fluent Spanish. His mom comes from Madrid. Use whose. So Martin, whose mom comes from Madrid, speaks fluent Spanish. Number 5. Paris is called the capital of light. I went there last holiday. Use where. So Paris, where I went last holiday, is called the capital of light. So now let's do this exercise on lesson 6. Read the text and choose the correct answer. The Suez Canal is one of the world's most important waterways. It was taken over by Egypt in 1956 and is now used by about 50 ships every day. In most places, the canal is only wide enough for one ship, but there are passing places, which means that ships can travel in both directions at the same time. Each ship takes between 11 and 16 hours to pass through the canal. It is now operated by the Suez Canal Authority, and ships are charged to use the waterway. This money is important income for Egypt. A new 35-kilometer section of the canal was opened in 2015. It was built to help modern ships, which are much bigger than in the past. So let's answer these questions. Number 1. Why was a new section of the canal built? So the answer would be it was built to help modern ships, which are much bigger than in the past. Number 2. What does the word "it" refer to? It refers to the Suez Canal. Choose the correct answer. 3. The canal was taken over by in 1956. So the answer is Egypt. Number 4. The other passing places in the canal enable ships to travel in at the same time. So, 2 directions. Number 5. The Suez Canal is one of the world's most important waterways. So that's it for today. I hope you understand this lesson. Goodbye.